Hey everyone, it's Good Friday, the day in which Jesus was crucified. And in many ways, St. Mark, in the telling of his gospel, he has been leading to this moment, to what's going to happen and how it's going to happen to Jesus. But Mark hasn't only been leading towards what's going to happen to Jesus in the sense of his death, but also in the sense of his abandonment, that everybody leaves him. And in that sense, he hasn't only been leading to what's going to happen to Jesus, but also about what's going to happen to his disciples. And that is that they will fail him. And there's a dramatic moment in which this really comes to the front when Jesus is having the last meal with his disciples. And they're sitting around the table to celebrate the Passover meal. And then Jesus says, one of you will betray me. One of you will turn its back on me. And the disciples get all worked up and trying to figure out who it is. And Jesus says, it's one of you who is here eating with me. And then he actually goes ahead and takes the bread and breaks it and gives it to his disciples and says, this is my body broken for you. And then he gets the wine and says, this is my blood shed for you. And he gives the bread and the wine to everybody who was sitting there. And then in the last scene, he's again saying, you will all fall away. You will all abandon me like when a shepherd is taken and all the sheep run. You will all abandon me, but I will go ahead of you into Galilee and we'll meet there, which is a very weird thing to say, right? You will all abandon me, but then we'll meet in Galilee. But if we follow this, and then the next scene is Jesus praying in Gethsemane and his disciples can't even stay awake while he prays and they keep on sleeping. Mark has been all through his gospel setting up for this, setting up for Jesus' death and his crucifixion, but also for the disciples' failure. Repeatedly, they fail to understand what Jesus is up to. Repeatedly, they fail to understand when he speaks about his death. Repeatedly, they fail to understand when he speaks about the nature of his kingdom and of his power and of his ministry. Repeatedly, and now they're going to literally abandon Jesus. And in fact, in the Gospel of Mark, after Jesus is arrested, they basically all disappear from the Gospel. Peter goes on a bit longer following Jesus, but just in order to deny him when he's confronted, and then to weep, and then he also disappears from the Gospel. And in the Gospel of Mark, none of them are there at the crucifixion. None of these 12 core disciples are there when Jesus is crucified. And the question is, what do we do with this? But I want to start by saying what we don't do with this. And what we don't do with this is to transform it into a guilt trap. And it's very easily done. It is done so often that you've probably seen it done that way. I've seen it done. And that is to say something like, yeah, Jesus died for you. Jesus did everything for you. And now you should do everything for him and you're failing him. He died for you and you can't even stay awake when he prays. He went all the way and died for you and you're betraying him. Well, to begin with, that narrative doesn't even work on the order of the narrative in Mark. Jesus tells the disciples that they are going to fail him, and then he goes ahead and he actually gives bread and wine to all of them. He tells them that they will fall away, and then he says, I will meet you in Galilee. That's not what happens. And then that's what he actually does. He actually meets them in Galilee. Or if you follow the Gospel of Mark, after the resurrection, these women who come to the grave, they find an angel who tells them, why are you looking for him here? He said he was going to raise from the dead. He has, and tell the disciples, he's waiting for them in Galilee. Go meet him there. He's going to be there. So we can't do that. The question in this gospel is not if we will fail. That's not the question in Mark's gospel. He has repeatedly made it very clear that we will, that the disciples will. But the question is not if we will fail. The question is, will Jesus be there when we fail and after we fail? Will Jesus be there in the end? This isn't a story about how bad people became good people because they were hanging around Jesus. That's not what this is about. This is a story about Jesus showing his faithfulness to people and his love and his grace to people. People, no qualifications. No qualifications, no prerequisites. This is about Jesus being there and showing his faithfulness and his love and his grace through death and resurrection. This is about a Jesus who is there after this in Galilee, waiting for them. And that's the Gospel Mark is telling us. It's not about if we're good enough. We will fail. We will fail, and we fail as a humanity. And you don't even have to go down all the route of the Christian faith to see how we fail and how it's very hard to look at the events of Easter without realizing our failure. Because even if you don't go all the way down of thinking of Jesus as the Son of God, still if you think about this man who was a rabbi, a teacher, teaching a peaceful message, teaching people to treat each other with love and respect, and this man gets crucified, brutally killed by the religious authorities working together with the political authorities so that he's hanged to die on a cross in a gruesome way as an example. I mean, that's how deeply we fail as a humanity. But here is a gospel of a God who is with us in our failure and beyond it. Here is the story of a grace that survives our doubt, that survives our death, that is there beyond our questioning, beyond our breaking things apart because we're not sure what to do with them and then trying to find ourselves. And even while we struggle to find ourselves, we find that Jesus is there waiting for us in Galilee, that he hasn't gotten anywhere, that he isn't waiting for us to get it all together. He is there with us, and that he goes into our death and into our suffering, and he withholds it, and he's there in the end. That's gospel. That's good news. This isn't about how bad people became good people. This is about how Jesus loves and shows grace and is with us to the end. So happy Easter, everybody. His crucifixion is a mirror of our failure. Yes. Yes. But we know, because he told us, he'll be waiting for us in Galilee. He's not going anywhere. Happy Easter.